Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well. We meet for the briefing on Wednesday, October 20th at H. Today, we will talk about economic news, the long and short ratio, funding open interest, and liquidations. We will look at what the whales are doing, ending with the technical analysis of Bitcoin. But before that, we will review what happened yesterday, and not much happened. We are currently in a range that we are breaking to the upside, so clearly, we will look at this together, but in my opinion, we just made a small liquidity grab right in this area, so by taking above this support, we break to the upside or downside. But what is certain is that we are currently in a range and anything can happen, because clearly we have liquidated above this zone and we have liquidated below this zone, so clearly anything is possible as long as we don't break out to one side or the other. I think I'm not going to make a decision. I believe that if we start to break, then on that side I think we could enter a short position in this zone around $60,000 earned $30 with a stop loss above $60,000 $200 for a target, so this zone around $60,000 $700. If we start to break directly downward, which would be better clearly, because that would mean we could potentially rise around $65 to $700, since we would have a lot of liquidity accumulation right here. So clearly, this could simply give us this kind of movement. And behind that, we could potentially enter a long position in this zone, placing our stop loss just below it for a target. So at least this zone, or even looking at $60,000 to $10,000, which would give us a nice risk-reward ratio. So there you go. For the moment, I think that in this range, there isn't much to do. Now we will look at the data to see which direction the probabilities give us for an upward or downward movement regarding today's economic news. It seems to me that there isn't much. I'm just going to put on a filter. So yeah, we don't have much. We only have new home sales, existing home sales, and crude oil stocks at H. And H. There is a speech from the Guard also at H, and we will have the decision from the Bank of Canada on interest rates. It's not news that is impactful for crypto, but it is news that is impactful for the global macroeconomy, because it gives us a bit of a point of interest to know whether the next FOMC meeting might potentially rely on it or not. If we ever look at the long to short ratio, we have a ratio that is returning to 50-50 due to the range. We have shorts that have closed and longs that have opened. So potentially, there you go, we could return to 50-50 if this range starts to linger a bit. Funding open interest, it's the same thing. We have fundings that are going down, so it's similar. It updates and goes back to about 50-50. We have position closures, and currently there is an open interest that is still within a complete range. This means that right here we had openings of positions that are not yet closed, and potentially right there. We had quite a few longs that were opened, and then quite a few shorts. When we see it right here, when we zoom in a little, we can see that there was a significant increase in open interest with a decrease in funding. So right here, there were quite a few shorts that had been opened, so potentially, there you go, they are still in the race, even if ever. We liquidated quite a bit in this area. But we can see that the open interest is still quite high. So potentially liquidations to be taken a bit lower. If we look at the liquidations on the 24-hour chart, we are clearly expecting some yo-yo movements. So if we ever start to go up only, potentially we could look for a lower point, and if we start to dump, we could look for a higher point. Then, in my opinion, we will liquidate one side to go after the other. So potentially, be careful. You are not going to make a decision now. We are in the middle of a range, so it can be really dangerous. Right now, we are in the middle, really between the two clusters, so I advise you not to trade until a decision is made. Regarding this range, there is a decrease in interest from the whales. Clearly, there are also no enormous purchases at the level of micro whales. It is rather the retail investors who are maintaining this price. We can see it clearly. There are purchases being made all along here by the retail investors. They are somewhat the ones maintaining this price. So now, we will see if we ever get a buyer return on the micro whales to push this price back up. But here's the thing, in my opinion, as long as we don't really have a buyer return like this, we don't really have an upward movement coming, because it's really the retail investors who are holding this price. So potentially, what I think is that it's still rather bearish. There is a higher chance of a dump than a pump, but we are not immune to a small liquidity wick, at least to come and seek the FVG that is right here. Yes, my zoom, a little bit. We see that on the 1 hour chart, there is an FVG located between 6804.20 and 6793.07. So potentially, there it is. There is an entry to take in there to potentially come back lower. Now, it is really important to keep in mind that the liquidations are a bit higher than that. When we look at the liquidations, there are quite a few around 6804, 20, 14. It can go up to 60,300. So that's a bit of the zone I'm giving you right here. The 60.8350 is an order block on the 1 hour chart, so there is potentially a scalp to attempt right here. But we need to be careful, because if we start to go up, the movement could still be quite bullish. I think I will try it with 0.5. And in my opinion, there you go. It could be interesting because Susan is taking this area. And if we come back here, we have a risk-reward ratio of 14, which is quite interesting. And we also have a short to take, so right here, to be safer with a stop loss, so above this area, to then come back and look for the same area. Potentially a risk-reward of 3. So I think I will put 0.5 and 1 on this area. So here it is. The plan is complicated today. I think that in my opinion, we will range a little more. And as long as we don't have a close above 6770 or 6665, we don't really have a decision to make in this market, so be careful. Don't trade in this middle of the range. There you go. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, I invite you to subscribe, like this video, and comment on what you think about it. We'll meet again tomorrow at the same time. Take care of yourselves. You Sund.